What's happening YouTube? This is Champion2D Rob back again with another video guys, and this time I am going to be showcasing my pickups, all my media pickups that's nothing to do with games, just Blu-rays, DVDs, that sort of thing. Stuff that's basically been accumulating now for the past few months. I do have some stuff that I bought very recently as well. I do like to showcase the Blu-ray pickups and stuff like that every now and again, you know, because I've got a real passion for movies, animation and stuff like that, and sometimes I think it's worth showing, and I think, you know, you guys might find it interesting as well. So anyway, I don't want to go on too long. We'll just dive right into it, guys, and I think we're going to start with some DVDs and some Blu-rays, some movies here. So a couple of Blu-rays here. First one I picked this up a while ago now, probably about a good few months ago. I had a real big urge to watch this film again. It's a movie that was directed by Frank Darabont. It's a Stephen King adaptation, and it's something that I've just really enjoyed over the years. It's one of those movies that I just like to put on late at night. I find it really rewatchable. And the film I'm talking about is The Mist. So this is a movie that I've actually enjoyed for many years, and it's one of my favourite Stephen King adaptations. Yeah, it's just one of those films that I just enjoy putting on late at night. Usually I can always stream it or something, but lately I've not seen it available to stream, and I did feel it was worth owning a physical copy. I don't know why I waited so long to get one, but just trying to track a copy down proved a little bit tricky. I was able to source one from CEX. Actually, there was after looking online, it turned out one of my local CEXs had it in stock, and fortunately it was in very nice condition, and it was actually the cheapest I found it for, so it's £8. But online at the time I was looking, it was actually a lot more expensive than that. I was finding it quite tricky. Amazon as well. It was quite expensive on Amazon and on eBay as well. So I decided to go the CEX route, and it paid off. Fortunately for me, I didn't even have to do the CEX roulette. I just went into my local shop and was able to pick it up. So really chuffed. This is a 2-disc set, and there's actually two versions of the film on here. So you've got the standard version, and there's also a black and white version, which I suppose is supposed to give it more of an old school sort of 1950s B-movie vibe to it, because that's kind of what the film sort of is. It's very sort of like a 1950s sort of B-movie creature feature, and I really dig it. Yeah, I really like this film. I know it has its detractors, but I don't know, I just really enjoy it. It's just one of my favourite sort of creature features I like to put on. So moving on from that, something completely different here. This is an animated film. I've actually yet to watch this, even though I bought it a little while back. And something superhero related, and that is Green Lantern, Beware My Power. I gotta be honest, I've not been feeling a lot of the more recent DC animated films. I don't know, I've seen a lot of them, and I just find them very disappointing as of late. So I've yet to watch this one, but the reason why I wanted to pick it up was because it's centered around Green Lantern, one of my favorite DC heroes, and specifically the John Stewart version of Green Lantern, which is the Green Lantern that I watched, that I got familiar with. Not necessarily the one I read in comic books back in the day, but I was a big fan of the Justice League animated series, and he was the Green Lantern of that series. So I did sort of have a great fondness for the John Stewart version. So when I saw they were making a film centered around him, I wanted to pick it up. But I've yet to see it, so I don't know what it's going to be like. Hopefully it's good, because like I say, the last few DC animated films I found to be very disappointing. So yeah, fingers crossed on that one. And the next two films here, these are DVDs. They're DVDs because I wasn't able to get a Blu-ray release. There's no Blu-ray release of these films, unfortunately. The first one here, now this is a horror film, and it's a movie that I've watched years ago, really enjoyed it. And again, I just felt like watching it one day, and I looked it up on the streaming sites, wasn't on there. So I sort of went on eBay and Amazon to have a look if I could pick it up, and see how much it was going for. The DVD copy was going for pretty cheap. I did consider getting a used copy, but to be perfectly honest, a brand new copy was only like £2 more than a used copy, so I thought I might as well just get a brand new one off Amazon. And the film I'm talking about is called Creep, and this is a very cool film. This is actually a British and German co-funded collaboration film. It's set on the London Underground, and it's a really sort of cool horror flick about a girl who sort of falls asleep on a platform late at night, and basically the station closes up. She basically gets locked in, and there's like a serial killer creature that's basically walking the underground. And it's a very cool sort of film, and I enjoy it a lot, so I felt like watching it again. This film came out back in, I think it was 2004, and I've just always felt it was a fun sort of horror film. And while I normally probably wouldn't have picked it up, I would have preferred to stream it, but I paid £5 for it, so it was worth picking up. But I recommend checking out Creep if you haven't already. Yeah, really cool movie. And the next film here on DVD, and this is one that I actually bought basically because I was reminded to buy it, unfortunately, because of the passing of Robbie Coltrane, a great British actor who's been in many things, but the one movie that I always remember him for, and that is Nuns on the Run. This is a film that came out in 1990. It's a great comedy movie, and unfortunately there's no Blu-ray release of this film, which I found really frustrating. Again, I had to buy this off CEX, but this was a CEX roulette and it actually worked out for me. I was able to pick up a nice clean copy. I've watched it, it still holds up. I hadn't seen it in many years. It's such a great film, great comedy, and I highly recommend it, guys. If you've not seen Nuns on the Run, please do yourselves a favour and check it out. What's also very cool about this film, and I'd completely forgotten about this until I watched it again recently, was that part of this film was actually filmed in the area where I grew up in, and I completely forgot about that. I didn't know about that at the time, but I'd completely forgotten all about it. And then I was watching the movie, and I was like, I recognise, like I saw some of the backgrounds. I was like, oh my god, like I recognise this is not far from where I used to live. So yeah, it was great to see that, and yeah, just a fantastic film. It's aged really well, surprisingly. Really funny film, guys. If you want to see a nice sort of like comedy, definitely check out Nuns on the Run. Brilliant film. Okay, moving on, and we've got two martial arts Blu-rays here. Now, I've got to admit, guys, it has been really hard not to pick up all the Asian Hong Kong releases that have been coming out on Blu-ray lately. I mean, these companies that have been putting them out have been doing some stellar work, like restoring the print, putting brand new features on them and stuff, like really sprucing them up and giving them a new lease on life. So I've been really sort of strict on what I get, just because you know, I don't want, you know, I've got, you know, you guys, I'm buying a lot of games, so budget, but also like I just have to be wary of space, and I don't want to have to accumulate too much stuff. So I'm being very selective with what I get. So I have two Blu-rays here, two films. One is actually one film I've never seen before. It was a complete blind buy, but it from what I've seen of the trailer and stuff, it really interested me. And another one is a film that I just absolutely adore, and I used to watch it back in the day. And so I'll start with the one that I've not seen before, and that film is Duel to the Death. And this film looks mad. This is basically like a samurai martial arts film. It looks badass though. The trailer for this film looks amazing, and I've heard nothing but good things about this film. This film is very well regarded, and from the trailer I saw, it just looked freaking crazy and amazing. But I've not gotten around to watching this yet, but I need to check it out. But yeah, they just done a real bang up job here with all the special features and stuff. And this is a Eureka release. Yeah, so looking forward to checking this one out. And the next one I got here, and this is one I was so happy it finally got an official UK release and on Blu-ray as well. And that is, of course, Police Story 3 Super Cop. Really chuffed with this film. This was one of my earlier introductions into Michelle Yeoh. Just a great team-up film with Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh. Just fantastic action stunts. Just an awesome film. Really, really enjoyed this one. It still holds up in my opinion. And yeah, glad to finally have this to complete that sort of original trilogy. I know there are a few more Police Story movies, but of that classic era, this sort of completes it. So really, really chuffed to get Super Cop as well. Next up, we've got some anime on Blu-ray. Not many, just 2 here. First one I picked up, and this one I bought ages ago. Now I have spoken about this particular series before. I watched it when I was a kid, was really into it. Loved a lot of the toys, and even one of the toys. If any of you guys are familiar with Transformers, obviously you guys are familiar with Transformers, but if you know your Transformers toys, if you're familiar with the toy that was Jetfire, and Jetfire, that toy was actually a repackaged toy from this series that they then put sort of the Transformers license on, and there was a bit of a complication, some red tape, where the animated series couldn't actually include him the way he looked, because obviously, you know, he was already tied up in another IP. It was a big mess, and they had to change his name, and it's just a big mess. But the series that character was originally based on was Robotech, and this is the Blu-ray release of Robotech. So this actually has, you've got the original Robotech series, which forms up the part 1, which is known as the Macross saga, because in Japan, Robotech was known as Macross. That's the original name of it. So this is basically that one story of Macross, but it basically had 2 follow-up series, which actually, so you've got here, so part 2, this is called the Masters Saga, but originally in Japan, this show had nothing to do with the original Macross. What happened was, in the West, they did some re-editing and redubbing to make the story fit in line with the original show. So this is, a lot of purists will say, a butchered version of this show. But for me, it doesn't really matter, because this is what I grew up with. This is what I watched back in the day. So you've got part 2 here, which is the Masters Saga. And then you've got part 3, which is the New Generation, which again has nothing to do with the previous 2 shows. But again, editing, dubbing, they made it part of basically one big storyline. But it's not. But it's really cool to have. And for me, the main focus here for me is the original show, Macross, which is the one that I loved and watched back in the day. But what's really cool about this package, I actually got the special edition set, which comes in a big box like this. And it actually comes, if I'll take it out here, it actually comes with 2 figures, which is really cool. So if I try and pull some of this out, let's see here. Yeah, so it basically comes with the actual fighter plane. So this is like a transforming jet that turns into a robot, the Veritech fighter, which is what they actually did Jetfire, the Transformer, was just basically a recolored, repurposed version of one of these transforming jets. And it also comes with another figure here on the side, which is the pilot of this particular Veritech fighter. And so yeah, really chuffed to get that. I believe I saw this. I wasn't aware. Now I was aware about the Blu-ray release, but I wasn't aware of this edition. And I think it was exclusive to HMV. And I saw someone post it up on Instagram, and I asked them where they got it, and they told me it was HMV. So I went over there, and I just bought it right away. Really cool. Yeah, so chuffed to get that actually. Normally I don't really buy a lot of sort of these collector editions for Blu-rays, but I just really like this particular version. I was just such a fan of the show, and honestly, like, it's one of those shows that, you know, even though it was geared for kids, you know, it's not really a show, you know, specifically aimed at kids. It does have a lot, like there was a lot of sort of drama, a bit of soap opera in there. It was very cool. One of those shows that adults could enjoy. So really chuffed to get that. And the next anime I picked up, and this is one of those ones that I grew up watching back in the day. This is basically an upgrade. I had this on VHS. I've still got it on VHS. I had it as a kid on VHS. So when I saw there was a Blu-ray release, I had to pick it up. And this is actually a very recent release. I actually just got it today. It came through the post today. And the anime is called Venus Wars. So this is I believe it's a late 80s, early 90s anime. I mean, for me, I would have picked it up in the early 90s, but I think this actually originally came out in the 80s. And it's just one of those animes that you will not see an anime like this again. Fully hand-drawn. It reminds me a lot of Akira in the way it looks, just by the hand-drawn animation. But it's a sci-fi action drama set on the planet Venus, I believe. Because I haven't watched it in many years, so I'm just going off from what I can remember. And I don't remember much of the plot. I do remember it was a very heavy, dramatic film. Like, despite the fact that it's called Venus Wars, and they show you a guy on a motorcycle and stuff like that, it's actually mostly a drama with some action elements in it. And I remember as a kid, finding it very slow. But I think it's one of those animes that I'm going to appreciate more now as an adult than I did back when I was about 13. So hopefully it lives up. From the clips I've seen of it, it looks amazing. And to me, that's what I can appreciate is the animation. But like I've said, I've not watched it in a very long time. I still have the VHS tape, but I've just not watched it in a very long time. But I'm trying to basically get as many of the animes that I grew up with on Blu-ray. So I was really chuffed to get this one. And this is a Region A release. So this is not a multi-region one. Though I haven't tried it out, because what I've began to discover is that some of them, even though they'll say Region A, they'll still be multi-region. But some may not be. But for now, since I've not actually watched it yet, I've not been able to try it out yet. Just go on the assumption that it's Region A only, which is US. So yeah, looking forward to checking that one out. And finally, I have got here some 80s animated cartoons. Again, stuff from my childhood. I've just been trying to pick it up, whether it be on DVD or Blu-ray, to add to my 80s and 90s cartoon collection. So let's start with, actually we'll start with the Blu-ray here. This is a film that I had on VHS. It was actually one of the first VHSs I owned as a kid. Back in the day, back in the late 80s. I've told this story before, and basically what it was is that my mum decided one day, without telling me, without even giving me any hints, she decided to buy a VHS player, and she bought me a stack of tapes. Like, just a bunch of tapes that I don't know how she picked them out. Maybe she got help from the staff at the shop. I believe she told me she bought them at Woolworths, and I think someone gave her a hand in what to choose. And one of the films that she got for me was this one, and that is The Last The Last Unicorn. And this is honestly a fantastic 80s feature-length film. And if you've not seen this film, okay, I'm just going to say something. Don't be put off by the title. This is quite a dark fantasy film. It's aimed at kids, but it's actually kind of scary in places. And I remember as a kid, there were moments in this film that I used to find quite chilling. Obviously, as an adult, it's not scary, but as a kid, it was. It had certain elements. It's a very, very cool, dark story. It's based on a book. It's got an amazing soundtrack, and I recommend people check it out and show it to your kids as well. Really is. It just epitomizes the stuff that we got in the 80s. That dark fantasy that did not pander to little children, wasn't afraid to scare kids, which I always think is healthy. I mean, you can scare them to a certain degree without, not necessarily with excessive violence, but just certain ways that they can do things to creep kids out. And I used to watch this film so much back in the day, and I've had it on DVD. I liked it, for a long time. But when I found out that America got a Blu-ray release of this film, I had to get it. And yeah, I'm really happy. I've watched it again. Still holds up. Absolutely adore it. Honestly, guys. The Last Unicorn. If you've not seen it, please, please, please check it out, guys. Especially if you're from my generation. For whatever reason, if you've missed it out, check it out. If you come back later, it's definitely one to watch, to check out. And it has an all-star cast of voice actors. You've got Christopher Lee. You've got my mind's blocking on his name now. He still makes movies today, and it really bugs me now. I've got to find his name now because it's really going to bug me. Jeff Bridges, the dude is in this. So yeah, Jeff Bridges, Mia Farrow, Angela Lansbury, who recently passed away, Christopher Lee. I mean, you just can't go wrong. Excellent voice cast, and it's definitely a film I highly recommend. Very, very happy to be able to upgrade it to Blu-ray. And the next few here, these are all DVDs, so these are all going into my DVD 80s and 90s Blu-ray collection. First one I have here is the complete series of Inhumanoids. So this is another 80s cartoon that came out around the same time as Transformers and all of them. It's pretty much voiced by the same voice cast of Transformers, Visionaries, G.I. Joe, all those cartoons. And this is actually one that I never watched as a kid. I never ever saw this as a kid. I was aware of it though, because some of the tapes that I had of G.I. Joe and Transformers, some of the ads they used to play, I remember seeing the ad for Inhumanoids, but I never actually saw the show itself. So since then I've sort of seen like the odd episode here and there, but I'm just glad to actually own the complete series. It didn't run for very long. I think it only ran for 13 episodes. Yeah, it only ran for 13 episodes. So very much like Visionaries, which had a very short run, because the usual run for an animated series was 65 episodes, just so that it could run in syndication. But there were some shows that unfortunately never even got the syndication run. Visionaries was one of them. This was another, and I do believe the one I'm about to show you had the same fate as well. So yeah, Inhumanoids, looking forward to giving that a watch. And the next one I've got here, now this is one, again, I never actually used to watch the show itself. I'd watched the odd episode, but I was a big fan of the toys. I really was. And the show I'm talking about is Dino Riders. So this is a very cool one to have. I remember being really big into the toys back in the 80s. I had one of the toys. I had one of the villains, which was like a raptor. If I can find it, I'll post a picture here. But yeah, I always wanted the T-Rex, which was like the main villain. And there was also like a Brontosaurus, which the good guys had. So essentially what this one's about is basically a bunch of humans and humanoids who are from the far future. They end up time traveling back into like a prehistoric Earth, and they get stranded they get stranded there, and they find a way to weaponize the dinosaurs, which actually starts off with the bad guys. The bad guys actually put mind control devices on the dinosaurs so they can control them and use them as vehicles, basically, to carry all their heavy weaponry. And the good guys, they don't do that. The good guys actually have telepathic powers, so they're able to befriend the dinosaurs and use them for the same purposes. But it was a really cool show. But for me, the funness of this show was mostly the toys, which is actually a very rare occurrence for me, because actually back in the day I was actually a bigger fan of the shows than I was of the toys, whereas this was the other way around. And yeah, just a really cool series. I'm very glad to actually have this one fully complete. And the last show I have here, and this was a pricey one for me. Unlike those ones which were, reasonably priced, this one is long out of print, and but I had to get it because I was a big fan of this show. And this is not even the complete series. This is basically the pilot movie that came out. So there was like an animated movie that came out first, and then from that animated movie it spawned the series. I still have yet to get the series. This is just the movie and a few select episodes, and it was very expensive to get. And I'm talking about BraveStarr. So this was bought from a collector, because this is long out of print. I had to shell out for this. And I eyed on it. So it's basically got it's 2 discs, and the first disc has the feature film, and the second disc has five episodes. But the reason why I got this is because I wanted it for the feature film, because the box sets of the series does not have the feature film. This is the only physical way of getting the feature film, so I had to shell out for it. And it came from a collector, so it still had the cellophane wrap, and it's basically cut down one side so you can take it out, and it's in lovely condition. Really do like this this set. Might as well show you. Hopefully nothing falls out. So you've got basically the discs here with some of the artwork, really nice. And you've got a booklet as well with the episode guides, and just sort of giving you a history on the show itself. So I was very fond of BraveStarr as a kid. I used to watch the show on BBC One back in the day, and the reason why I've got very fond memories of BraveStarr, because I remember on my 7th birthday, I actually had my birthday at a Wimpy. So for those of you that don't know, Wimpy was a chain of restaurants here in the UK. It's not really around anymore. There still are a few, but back in the 80s they were everywhere. So I celebrated my 7th birthday at Wimpy. And the reason why I always make the connection with BraveStarr was because one of the kids, as a present, gave me one of the characters for my birthday. But I remember why it stood out, because he didn't give me any of the cool characters. He gave me this random miner character that came with, and I mean miner as in he was a miner, and which came with like a vehicle, his little mining vehicle and stuff. It was not cool. I mean, I wanted BraveStarr, I wanted one of those characters, but I mean, I could have got them myself, but I never did. But I was, like I said, I was a big fan of the cartoon, but I will always associate it from that. But also a funny story, at that same birthday party, there was a guy that came out wearing the Wimpy mascot dress, and when he came out, I don't know why, but I had like this really strong urge to rush him. And when he came out to entertain the kids, I went up behind him. I jumped on one of the chairs, one of the booths, and I literally launched on him. Like I jumped on his back, and I think I seriously hurt the guy because he walked off like he literally had to be walked off like he was limping, and that's how I make the connection, because of that toy I got at that time, 7 years old. And no, if anyone's gonna ask, no, I was not as big as I was back then as I am now. No, but still, like, I caught him off guard and I jumped on his back, and I think I injured him because he walked away limping. But yeah, so that's how I remember Bravestar from being 7 years old. But yeah, very, very chuffed to get this into my collection. I will get the rest of it at some point. So yeah, and do you know what? And after watching the film, it still holds up. And a quick side note as well, Bravestar was made by Filmation, the very same people that made the He-Man show. So even though it's a much later show, so it's the animation's better than He-Man, it still has that kind of He-Man sort of vibe to it, which I thought was really cool. I really enjoyed. So yeah, chuffed with that. So that is it, guys. That's basically all my Blu-rays and DVDs that I've picked up in the last few months. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what stuff interests you. And yeah, thank you very much for sticking around and watching the whole thing. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, guys. It really does help my channel. Really helps the exposure with the I forgot what it's called now, but it just gives it more exposure, guys. So I really do appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching, and of course I always appreciate the interaction as well. So anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Bye bye.